Hello, and welcome to my working title of Primal Impulse Edge Play Safety and Why Newbies Should Avoid It. We'll go over why in a little bit, but this is an advanced class. This is for people that have had experience in BDSM for a while, or if you're brand new and you're joining us for the first time, if your kink journey started recently or with us, then this will go under we'll put it aside for later. So we'll go over that in a second. So it's written, presented by me, Taco VR, for Primal Impulse. You can join our Discord server and come and join the fun every Saturday. I almost said Sunday, Saturday. So disclaimer, this is edge play. It is important to recognize that edge play involves activities that are considered more intense and carry higher risks than other forms of BDSM play. These activities can cause physical and emotional harm if not associated with proper knowledge, consent, and safety measures in place. It is essential to remember that engaging in edge play requires a high level of trust between partners and is not recommended for beginners or those who are not fully aware of the risks involved. Before participating in any form of edge play, it is important to educate oneself on the necessary safety measures, use appropriate equipment, and establish boundaries and communicate with your partner. That being said, this class will not be enough for you to go out and try edge play. This is a starting point. Go and do your research, join classes, join the community around you to gather more information. As an educator, my role is to provide the information and resources to those who wish to explore edge play, but I strongly encourage individuals to assess their own levels and personal boundaries before engaging in any activity. And I would also ask that you mute on Discord and in game if you're not actively asking questions. Welcome everyone to Edge Play, a Primal Impulse class. Today we'll be exploring some of the more extreme aspects of BDSM play and delving into some practices that may push the limits of what you're accustomed to. This class is not for the faint of heart and will contain graphic descriptions of kink that may be triggering or uncomfortable to some individuals. If at any time during the class you feel uncomfortable or need to take a break, please do not hesitate to speak up or step out, or disconnect and ping one of our staff members and they can help you. Today we have Primal Impulse here, which is being run by Minnie and Squidge. It is important to note that edge play by definition involves an increased level of danger. So that being said, it is crucial that all participants have a thorough understanding of the risks and safeties involved in each practice before engaging in them. We're going to be going over a variety of safety protocols and best practices for each form of edge play discussed in this class. And with that in mind, I hope you're all ready to explore the depths of your kink desires and learn about some of the more taboo aspects of BDSM. So, there we go. First off, though, I want everyone who is new to BDSM or kink to put this class into the category of possibly one day, but for now, it's nice to learn about and more riskier elements of the lifestyle so I know what to avoid until I'm ready. I can't stress this enough. The items that we cover are very likely dangerous, or are very dangerous, especially breath play and fire play. But since I know people like choking, it's important to share as much safety and precautionary measures as we can. If you're more educated, then this info should be a good tool for you to avoid the bigger pitfalls that come from the practices, whether they be physical, emotional, or mental. Remember to fully negotiate these and never pull these out as a surprise. Bottoms, this is great info for you as well, as you can keep yourself safe and inform yourself. Remember, you can say stop at any time during these methods, so be safe and as safe as you can be when you're working with edge play. So, class structure and expectations. This will be a multi-part class. When I sat down to write this, I quickly found myself diving down rabbit holes on some topics that were greatly of interest to me, and ones that I could not afford to skip over because of the safety concerns I felt needed to be shared. We will cover 5 today, and the rest we'll save for the next part. First on our list is breath play, which involves restricting someone's breathing, such as through choking or suffocation. This type of play can be extremely dangerous and requires a lot of trust and communication. We will discuss the safest method used in breath play and safety measures that must be taken to ensure everyone involved is safe. Next up is fire play, which involves the use of flames, candles, cups, or other sources of heat to stimulate or create sensations. Fire play can be both sensual and intense and require careful consideration of safety measures. We will discuss the different types of fire play and the safety precautions that must be taken to prevent any unwanted injuries. Fire is scary. Fire is wild. That is a very important thing to know. So no matter how much you plan for fire play, something will probably go wrong and you need to be prepared for it. Another type of edge play is needle play, which involves piercing the skin with needles for pleasure or pain. Needle play requires skill and precision, and we will go over various techniques that are used to ensure that it is done safely. We will also discuss aftercare that is necessary following needle play sessions. Rope play, while looking like a sore thumb on this list, carries a high degree of danger when you think about nerve damage and circulation loss, also choking. So we will go over some basics of this and most likely cover rope in additional detail in a future class. And fifth and not least is knife play. Knife play is a type of BDSM play that involves a knife or other sharp object to stimulate or create sensations in the body. This can include light scratching, drawing patterns, or design on the skin, or even cutting. Knife play can be a form of sensory play or a way to explore power dynamics, or fear play. We will focus on proper technique in this section. Breath play. Breath play is a type of edge play that is becoming increasingly popular within the BDSM community. So we're going to start diving into these things now. So it involves restricting a person's breathing through choking or suffocation in order to achieve an intense physical and psychological experience. Breath play can be extremely dangerous and should only be undertaken with a partner that is experienced and trustworthy. Communication is also a critical type role in this play and is important to establish clear boundaries and safe word beforehand. You'll hear that a lot because, as you know, that's where we're founded on is safety and consent. So there are different methods of breath play, including using hands or tools to restrict airflow to the mouth or nose, or using a gas mask or a plastic bag to create a vacuum effect. It is crucial to note that this type of play can result in serious injury or even death, and is not recommended for beginners or those who are not experienced in practice. Do your research, basically, before engaging in any of this. In order to engage in breath play safely, it is important to take a number of safety measures. First, partners should establish a clear safe word, obviously. Second, breath play should only be done if both partners are sober and in a clear state of mind. Finally, it is important to have necessary tools on hand to release any restraints or equipment in case of an emergency. If someone's doing breath play and they're tied up, you need to be able to get them out if something goes wrong. For this class, we'll be focusing on the much safer way of breath play, and that's withholding or blocking the air. I do not recommend squeezing someone's throat. There are a lot of very delicate things in there, so if the thought of choking or being choked is appealing, put your hands on someone's neck softly and don't squeeze. Use it as a power exchange method instead. Do not block air or blood flow to the neck. Instead, use your hand to cut off the nose, or you can block it or fully close off for a negotiated amount of time that you and your partner have come up with. I recommend starting with short durations and working up from there. You can even do that partially, as I mentioned, to create the sensation without a full cutoff to mix it up. This can also be done with a gas mask and a tube for air. You can plug the tube up while they're in a gas mask, which is actually super fun. I love masks. So safe words are huge in breath play, and I'm not kidding. Have nonverbal safe words such as tapping someone's arm if you need air. Don't use the traditional waving because that could be misinterpreted in this case. Tapping is the universal language of release this hold and is used as MMA, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and pretty much all self-defense methods. If you insist on using restraints for breath play, make sure that there is a clear signal you agree on, such as thrashing a leg or something. I don't recommend having someone restrained in breath play myself. I like the bottom to be able to clearly tap me to stop. In summary, breath play can be a thrilling and intense experience for those who have experience in this and trust each other. However, it is important to recognize that the risks involved take on all necessary precautions to ensure that this experience is fun, as safe as you can be for all involved. Communication, trust, and preparation are key to having a positive and enjoyable experience with breath play. I would also highly recommend not to do this unless you actually know CPR. I would go out and get a CPR certification. In fact, I would do that anyway, especially with BDSM. As a DM at a local dungeon, I had to take certification classes in order to perform my duties. So, because you have to be able to resuscitate someone if something goes very wrong. Does anyone have any questions about breath play? I'm more than happy to talk a little bit more about it, but I'm covering a little bit at a time on this stuff because we have 5 to get to, but I'm more than happy to open up for questions at the end of each one of these descriptions. If you take anything from that section, don't squeeze the throat, okay? Stay away from that. You can use it as a power exchange tactic to sort of hold your hand there. Don't squeeze. Use the air prevention method. But again, don't surprise someone with it. This is pre-negotiated. Okay, so fire play. This was a fun one. I found myself going down a huge rabbit hole on this because it is freaking cool, okay? Everyone has that sort of inner demon that wants to play with fire, right? But you got to realize it is both thrilling and dangerous. Fireplay deals heavily in fear because as a caveman, it showed us fire's hot, fire bad. So it is a very instinctual fear and requires a very high level of respect. Now that's respect for it and respect for your partner. It involves using flames, candles, cups, or other sources of heat to create sensations on the body. While fireplay can be essential in erotic experience, it also requires a high level of awareness for safety and proper preparation to prevent accidents or burns. As such, it is important for anyone interested in exploring fireplay to understand the risks involved and take the necessary safety precautions. Always have fire blankets and a fire extinguisher on hand prior to any fireplay experience. I would also like to recommend a spotter who is trained to use the extinguishers or blankets and who has preferably been a spotter before. No synthetic fiber clothing on the bottom either. Naked is safest. You don't want anything that will catch fire. Ideally, neither participant has styled their hair with any kind of mousse, gel, spray, or product with alcohol in it. A long hair should be tied back. A venue that you're doing this in should be non-flammable, as non-flammable as you can find. Concrete and certain types of tile can take longer to ignite and give you more time to respond in a disaster. Carpets grant you no such luxury. In a house, best place is sometimes in the basement or in the kitchen, depending on how you set it up. If you live in a big city, there might be a dungeon that allows fireplay where you can try this and also meet people to supervise your practice. So that was a quote from a website that's in the resources. Very cool site. Although it sort of flippantly mentions that you should try fireplay, but it also says that you should be extremely safe about it. So you get the idea here that anything that's flammable is very bad here, right? Yeah. It is also vital for the bottom to avoid flailing and to stay calm so the fire can be extinguished. So practice your mindful breathing as a bottom and remain in the moment. There are several types of fireplay, including fire cupping, fire flogging, and your basic fireplay with cotton balls soaked in isopropyl alcohol. So if the bottom flails, it has a high chance of going out. Fire cupping involves placing heated cups on the skin, creating a suction in the air inside as the air cools. So you put a cup on someone's back and you heat it up. If you watched Unis Honest, they did a couple fire cups episodes before they deleted their channel. So you put it on the skin, you put it up, and the air gets sucked out of it, causing the skin to raise off of their back. So it leaves big raised red marks on the skin and is very cathartic to the bottom. It is also very much used in Eastern medicine as well as physical therapy to increase blood flow to the back to aid in recovery. So yeah. Fire flogging, on the other hand, involves using a flogger with fire on the tips or the entire thing to create a fiery sensation on the skin. Usually these floggers are made from Kevlar for longer burning time and use various types of alcohol or fuel to light the fires. Remember, if you are participating in this, to wring out the excess. So when you're swinging, the falls do not spit fire in various directions. Okay? Yeah, exactly. You don't want any clothing to melt on someone either. Good point, Tess. Okay, so yeah, you want to wring out the excess. So you're swinging the flails, it stays where you want it to go. Also remember that fire flogging is a very visual experience, so don't go full impact on the bottom. You want to remember the same amount of restraint you would normally do, and then add 50% more to it, okay? You're dealing with fire here. You got to be careful. Remember to use the edges and lightly caress the skin with just the tips. Remember how last week I said using the tips is stingy? Well, it's sort of required when you're doing fireplay, right? So I can show you a little bit here. I'm going to light my hands on fire, which is something you can do with fireplay, but only for a couple seconds. So, and we'll go over that in a second. So remember to use the edges and lightly caress the skin. If the fire spreads, use the extinguisher and put it out immediately. I have put a perfect example of fire flogging in the 101 materials channel or the description of this video. Just as you see in the video, he practices using a chair, not his bottom. Demonstration. So yeah, that demonstrates proper technique. So I highly recommend after you're done with this to watch that video. It's in 240p, but it's amazing. The guy's just like fire, like flogging and stuff. It looks insane and cool. So, basic fireplay, on the other hand, let me turn my hands off. Basic fireplay, on the other hand, no pun intended, is usually running a fueled cotton roller over the bottom skin or putting out the fire, the trail with your hand before 2 seconds. You can also put an alcohol-soaked cotton ball on their skin, hands, etc., and light it for no more than 2 seconds. Remember that even basic fire play has a risk of getting out of hand, and very quickly so. Safety is paramount when it comes to fire play. It is important to use fire-resistant materials and take precautions in having a fire extinguisher nearby, etc., and a safety plan. It's also important to take into account allergies or any medical conditions they may have that can make them more susceptible to burns or other injuries. Someone could be allergic to the alcohol. Fire should never be on someone's skin longer than 2 seconds. Any longer and damage can start to be done. So the bottom should feel a tickling and heat, but not pain until 3+ seconds as the fire consumes the fuel. For aftercare, quote unquote, if everything has gone well, then the main consideration is irritated skin. The bottom skin will be dry, both because of the alcohol and because you've been setting it on fire. Moisturize the affected areas if they're not burned. Your bottom shouldn't ever get anything worse than a minor burn if something goes wrong, but remember, it requires first aid if it happens. More serious than redness warrants a professional healthcare attention. So if someone actually gets burned, take them to the hospital. Okay? Again, we're dealing with a lot of safety concerns here because it's edge play. Edge play is dangerous by nature. So again, this might scare some people, and that's probably a good thing. You need to have a healthy respect for this stuff. Okay. So does anyone have any questions about fire play? Because this is something I will definitely be going over in a future class because this is super cool. Anyone's hands up? A note from Tess on fire play. So worth mentioning that as the temperature increases, time to severe burn drastically decreases. Exactly. Severe burns are no good. So no questions on fire play. Good. Fire play is fun, but also very, very dangerous. Just a little bit of a story. It wasn't really used in a kink way, but it was sort of just used in a calming way. I used to use fire play with just like touching the fire, setting my hand on fire, and then putting it out. And I would do this while my ex was in the bath because it would calm both of us down. And I would also use it on her skin. It was just something that we did that was just calming to both of us. But again, that's because we have a little bit of experience in that area and we were in a controlled environment. So, plus if something went wrong, we have water right there because it was in the bathtub. Okay. So, okay. We'll go on to needle play. Any more questions? Okay, needle play. Needle phobes out there, mute. I'll wave my hands up when it's safe, okay? It is important to address the topic of needle play in BDSM and emphasize the importance in safety and technique. Needle play can be an intense and pleasurable experience for those who are interested, but it's important to note it is not without risk. Proper preparation and execution in needle play can help minimize these risks. Needle play involves piercing the skin with needles for pleasure or pain. The needles used in needle play are typically sterile and single use. It is important to ensure that all equipment is properly sanitized before use. It is also important to ensure that the needles are inserted at an appropriate depth and angle to avoid damaging any internal organs or major blood vessels. It is also important to properly clean and care for the needle sites after a play session. This includes using sterile saline solution to clean the area and applying a sterile bandage to prevent infection. It is also important to monitor the needle sites for any signs of infection or other complications, such as excessive bleeding or bruising. In conclusion, needle play is an intense and pleasurable form of edge play in BDSM. However, it's important to prioritize safety and technique to minimize the risk involved. Proper sanitation and communication and techniques are all important factors to consider when engaging in needle play. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. It is also important and crucial to ensure that the needle sites are properly cleaned. So as with any form of edge play, it's important to approach needle play with caution and respect for the risks involved. This is a very high level overview of needle play because I'm not super familiar with it, but I wanted everyone to sort of get a gauge on what it was because it is actually becoming more and more common. I see a lot of people in the local scene playing with needles now, and they all have needle kits and stuff. And Shihaya likes needles. Hey, maybe we can talk more about it later because I am interested. I don't have a needle phobia per se, and I'll give you a reason for that. I learned really quickly that it wasn't the needles that hurt. It was the stuff they put under your skin. Because you know how you go to an allergist and they prick your back with those things, like the back pricker things? Well, they didn't do that with me. Instead, they took my arm and they put little bubbles of liquid underneath it 40 times. I learned the needle was fine. It was the liquid that hurt. So that got me over real quick. That was a wake-up call to, oh, needles aren't so bad, right? Needle play comes with the risk of permanent marks. Good technique can minimize but not eliminate this. Correct. We're talking scarification. Thank you for bringing that up. Appreciate it. Remember that if you're doing anything that's going to be piercing or scarring, that you should be aware that that could be something that's going to end up happening. It sounds obvious, but it needs to be said. Thank you, Tess. Rope play from Tess, as right here. Thank you, Tess, from our Primal Impulse community. This feedback was given while I was writing this class. So these quotes come from Tess. So rope contains so many risks that it probably should be on your list of edge play topics, even if most people probably don't immediately think of it as such. Nerve damage is easy to achieve and continues to build over time unless the source of impingement is removed. While mild nerve damage usually heals, it doesn't always do, and sometimes only partially heals. Effects of nerve damage include loss of sensation, loss of muscle coordination and strength, pins and needles, etc. Be very careful with rope. Sometimes, often, people mistake nerve damage for loss of circulation. While loss of circulation is safe for many tens of minutes, nerve damage left that long may never recover. Given that most rope practitioners have some sort of degree, or to some degree have accepted this risk, edge play for rope players tends to be neck rope, self-tying, and praying that what you are feeling is circulation rather than nerves while pushing through for a photo that you want. If you want restraint without the risk of rope, use cuffs. Now, I am going to be releasing a BDSM for newbies video relatively recently, probably next week. It goes over using restraints or like an easy snap out restraint system from Amazon instead of using rope or Velcro. Use Velcro cuffs or something like that. Or leather cuffs. Leather cuffs with a non-locking D also works for restraint. Because for me personally, I use rope for restriction, not for shibari or art purposes. I use it strictly to get something done that I want done. And I know enough to be able to not cut off circulation and to keep gaps in the ropes, and always to have safety shears nearby in case I need to get it off. Not scissors, safety shears. Safety shears can cut through rope a lot easier. Chihaya says, if you're not slip, you're doing it wrong. Yes, you want your knots to be able to stay in one place, because if it's slipping, it's going to cut circulation. Like it'll come closer or cut.
The other point of safety shears is you can get them between the rope and the skin without stabbing your victim.
Exactly. Safety shears will avoid stabbing. They're used a lot in medical as well, when you're cutting off bandages and stuff like that. Same thing. So let's see. It is very important. This is a very important thing to hear and to share. So with their permission, I'm relaying it to you. Rope has always been looked at as the go-to for kink practitioners, especially so when with so many rope bunnies out there running around and wanting people to tie them up. Both sides, tops and bottoms, need to be very aware of the risks involved, especially on joints, the neck, and pressure points that can cause lasting harm. So newbies should stay away from rope, at least in terms of using it in actual play. Let's see. And stick with easy-to-release restraint devices. For those who are more advanced, stay tuned for our rope class, where we may bring you an expert or two to speak on the topic. Both Tess and myself recommend, if you really want to get into rope, find a peer rope group in your local area so you can go and learn in person. And also, that's also safer. Learning with other people can prevent you from getting stuck. So it's like there's a lot of rope groups locally. It's like, Rope 101 or rope group or rope friends or something, friends with rope. Just look for rope in your local community if it's something that really calls to you, and they can take you from there. Those people come together to learn the art of rope, of self-tying and tying others. Does anyone have any questions about rope? Again, I'll go into more detail on it in a future class, but for right now, I'm touching on it lightly just so people can understand that it is edge play. Oh, knife play. By far my favorite form of edge play. I've been working with knives for over 9 years, and I was known for it in my home dungeon. I'm not staking my flag and saying, hey, I'm important. I'm saying that it was a passion of mine, and it was clear that it was a passion of mine. So people knew that I enjoyed it and would come to me and ask to play. I will most likely be giving a much bigger class on this topic in the future, as there is so much to this kink and it's so much fun to share. So let's go over some basics and work our way up. Chihaya, can you bring me the knife, please? Danko. Knife play. We're in this map specifically because it had a knife. I don't have a knife on this avatar yet. I need to get one. So here are the basics. Knife play is a form of edge play. Get it? Edge play. That involves using a knife or other sharp object to stimulate the body. It can be incredibly erotic and powerful experience to those who enjoy it, but it's also a very high-risk activity that requires proper technique and safety measures. One of the main aspects of knife play is the power exchange that takes place between the dominant and submissive partner. The dominant partner can use the sharp object to create a sense of fear and vulnerability in the submissive, while also stimulating their body in ways that can be intensely pleasurable. This can create a powerful bond between the partners and deepen their connection on an emotional and physical level. While engaging in knife play, it is essential to have a clear understanding of proper techniques and safety measures to be following to ensure both partners remain safe. The dominant partner should have a good understanding of the anatomy of the body and avoid areas that are more sensitive or prone to injury, such as major arteries, veins, joints, inside of the elbows, inside of the knees. Those are all soft tissue. You can go through them a lot easier. So make sure that if you're playing with knives, that you're not pressing on those areas. It's very important. Wrist, everything else. Okay. As with any form of edge play, it is essential to have a thorough understanding of the risk involved and take the necessary precautions to minimize the risks. First aid kit, especially useful for knife play. Accidents happen. You can slip and cut if you're not going for cutting, because some people that experience knife play, they do it in something called artistic cutting. And we can go over that in a bigger class, but I'll briefly touch on it in a second. So by following proper technique and safety, we can ensure that this is a safer method of play. So I hit a button. There I am. So knife play sounds extremely scary on paper, but in practice and in the right hands, it's incredibly intoxicating for both the bottom and the top. I've had partners go into subspace at the merest of scratches, or it's taken scratching patterns into someone's back for them to actually go into subspace. For myself, I tend to avoid cutting, as I feel that even after all this time of 9 years, I still need more practice in order to make sure someone is safe during artistic cutting sessions, but I have dabbled in it slightly. I have done 1 or 2 scenes with it, with people that were around in public environments that could help me if something went wrong. That's my spotter. So I highly recommend spotters. Take that off for now. I highly recommend spotters for doing this kind of play. Don't do it in private if you're first starting out. Let's see. The way you use your knife, of course, now I actually need to pick it up. The way you use your knife in the scene is the back of it. See this back part? You use it, I'm going to use it on my arm. You use it like this way, and you can run it along someone's skin, just the tip on the edge on the back side, okay? You don't want to do it on the front side because that's an active cut. You want to do it on the back side at an angle like that. You want to stay away from the wrists. You want to stay away from the soft tissues on the joints as well. And you want to stay away from the neck, and you want to stay away from the face. Now, if you're using it for fear play, putting something next to someone's face is okay, but be very careful that they're not going to jerk on you, okay? I recommend that when you're first starting out, to use a plastic knife. You can even show a real knife to your submissive, blindfold them, and then switch to a plastic knife so they have the illusion of the danger is there. I do not recommend using dull knives, as this could cause you to become careless and handling them, and you always need to be on your A game when you're dealing with knives, okay? Always. As a dominant, I go into a very nice headspace on this because, to be honest, I fear these things. Knives have scared me in the past, always have. But when I wield them, and because of that fear, I go into a heightened state, and it's akin to Dob space for me for sure, okay? So when I'm actually using the knife, I go into a hyper sense of focus, and it just puts me on a whole new level. So I'm not trying to promote the use of knife play. I'm sharing that why it's fun for me. And make sure that you're always pointing something away from you. Don't have the edge close to anyone or anything. So even though this is a virtual knife, I'm trying to have safe practice here and just keep everything safe. Knife play doesn't always have to be super serious though. Even though I'm quite theatrical when I play, I'm a very theatrical person, obviously, center of attention, all that. One time when I had a set of throwing knives named Rick and Morty. Morty was a bit dull, like Morty is, while Rick had a defect at the tip, which gave him a bite that made it feel like when someone was having it scratched on them, it felt like they were being cut without actually cutting them. I told my play partner to close their eyes and guess what knife I was using. And then I got to work and she growled, "Fuck you, Rick." I ended up making a plumbus on her arm because it was fun. It's important that bottoms stay still and do not jerk. It's super vital here because that can cause cuts. What I would do if I didn't think that someone was up to speed with knives or relatively new to it, I would start with plastic knives and work from there. I personally have a couple dull knives that I can use if someone wants a tasting booth, but that's because it's only for tasting. It's like, hey, you want to see what this feels like? That way, I show it to them, it's dull, and then I can just show it to them. I won't use those in actual play because I want to maintain a hyper-focused state and make sure that I'm not cutting anybody. So Tess says, if you want to give your blindfolded S-type the thought of a knife or edge, use a spoon. I keep an old endless bone-handled knife in my kit. Nice. Very nice. No edge on that. So yeah, plastic, spoons, etc. Anything with an edge on it, really, but it doesn't have to be a sharp edge. Knife play is fear play. In fear play, the dominant partner wields the knife and may use it to threaten or intimidate their submissive partner. Consensually, okay? This is negotiated. Don't pull this out without proper consideration. The use of a knife creates a sense of danger and unpredictability, adding to the psychological impact of the scene. The submissive partner may feel vulnerable or helpless, but they also trust their dominant partner to keep them safe. It is important to note that fear play involving knives should always be done with caution and proper technique. The dominant partner must be skilled in using the knife safely and know how to handle it without causing harm. It is also essential to establish clear boundaries beforehand and ensure the submissive partner feels comfortable and in control during the scene. You don't want to take full control away from somebody unless that's what they want, because you want them to be able to communicate and to be able to get out of it if they need to. Again, visual safe words, tap someone on the shoulder, or whatever else you've negotiated. Never surprise somebody. So knife play can be a powerful tool in power exchange dynamics, and it allows the dominant partner to exert their control and dominance over the submissive partner in a way that's both physical and psychological. It can also be a way for the submissive partner to relinquish control and surrender to their dominant partner, trusting that they can push their boundaries in a safe and consensual manner. As I said, plastic knives or spoons are a good way to start in this practice as well. Other types of knife play, or sharps specifically, include pinwheels, vampire gloves, and curry combs. So we're going to get into a little bit more extreme stuff here, so forgive me for this, but a pinwheel, the pinwheels are relatively easy. They're basic. You can get a set of 1, 3, 5, and 7 on Amazon, and they're relatively easy to use, and you just lightly roll them over someone's skin. Pinwheel is a small handheld device that has a wheel of sharp points that can be rolled over the skin to create a prickling sensation. In knife play, a pinwheel can be used to create a similar sensation to a knife without actually breaking skin. It can be an effective way to create a sense of anticipation and heightened arousal. Vampire gloves, my favorite toy. Okay, vampire gloves are my favorite toy, and here's why. Vampire gloves are gloves that are fitted with small metal spikes or teeth, often made of stainless steel. They're like little tacks that poke out from the glove. They're designed to be worn on hands and used for sensation play, including in knife play. The spikes on vampire gloves can be run over the skin, creating a variety of sensations, from a light scratch to a more intense prickling feeling. A lot of people get scared of these. They look scary. They're actually super soft, super, super nice to use. Or very scary to use if you're going to be going a little bit harder. But again, that's based on the consent and the comfort of the people involved. When combined with a knife, the spikes can be used to enhance the sensation of the blade against the skin. So what I'll do is I'll take a knife, and I have my vampire glove. I'll do this. Remember, it's the back end of the knife. Or you can use the side of it. Just be careful, right? The side of it's going to be more intense, but the back of it, and then I'll run my vampire gloves along while doing the knife, like this. That's what I'll do. Okay. You can also use it as a spanking mechanism, but note this will draw blood. It doesn't hurt like you would think, and using it more into a session heightens the sensations and lessens the pain. I usually break this out with people that are consenting, and I'll actually use it to spank them a few times, and it draws pinpricks of blood because you're literally hitting them with tacks. Again, I'm not a fan of blood play, but no blood is okay in my book, and it's not a hard limit for me. Blood play is, which is why I removed it from this list. I was writing it, and I read it out on myself. I'm like, nope, I'm out, because I'm okay with blood, but I'm not okay with specific aspects of it. So as an educator, I'm going to offload that to someone else if they're willing to talk about it here, because I don't want to touch it personally. I want to mention it and give you some facts and feedback on it, but going deep into it is something that kind of makes me queasy. And there are people like that out there, myself included. Let's see. Curry combs. Bastards. Curry combs are little bastards. Curry combs are small handheld tools that are typically used for grooming horses. They have a series of metal teeth in them that can be run over the skin to create a tingling, scratching sensation. In knife play, curry combs can be used in a similar way to vampire gloves to enhance the sensation on the skin They can also be used to create a variety of textures and sensations, depending on the pressure and speed in which they're used. They can also be used in a more extreme way, such as striking the skin of the butt. Don't go anywhere outside of the butt on these, because you're talking about hitting the meaty part, because curry combs can do some damage. Okay, you hit with the curry comb, light blood will spill, of course. Little pinpricks will come up, and they'll create like really cool swirly patterns, which is really, really cool to look at. Or using a soft mallet to pound it against the skin, like one of those soft-headed mallets. You know, I've seen people use that too. This is for more advanced players, so please avoid that for now. Use a mist sensation if you're going to. We have a couple comments here. Blindfolded S-type. This is from Tess. Actually, sharp knives are a limit for me as a D-type, so I'm less worried about the edge habits, as I'll not be using a sharp one. It's about the fear element. Correct. I feel like pinwheels and vampire gloves don't always get the degree of sterilization they should have. Both can draw blood, and particularly vampire gloves should probably be considered full fluid bonded. Absolutely. Thank you. I knew I forgot something. Metal curry combs are used for cleaning other brushes, not directly on horses generally. Fair. So misnomer there. So when you're dealing with anything that draws blood, if you're dealing with needles, use new ones. If you're dealing with vampire gloves, if you play with somebody, it needs to be sterilized, but that should be considered to be played. That those gloves are linked to the person you played with. So for example, if I have two submissives, I will color code them, purple and green. The purple gets the purple gloves, the green gets the green gloves. That way everything stays sanitary. Same thing with toys. I'll actually do multiple toys for that, like purple floggers, green floggers for different people. Their colors will be different colors, etc., etc. So thank you, Tess. 100% agree with that. More of an overview, but the safety and sanitation of your tools is absolutely necessary. This is also for floggers as well. I haven't really talked about keeping your toys clean. I probably should give a class on that, but always sanitize anything that you use. If you're using like a sex toy, for example, always use a condom on it and then clean it after. Don't just use the toy and leave it there and then use it again. It's going to get funky, okay? Same thing with knives, same thing with floggers. Use leather care products to make sure to properly clean them and sanitize them, but then use leather products to make sure they stay soft and nice. Okay? It's about the direction you wanted to go in on that one. All right, cool. Yeah, and if you do draw blood accidentally using any of these methods or any of these play techniques, stop the scene, deal with it immediately. Don't wait. Unless you're actually doing full-on blood play and you want that to happen, if you accidentally cut someone, it is an accident, not a happy accident. Make sure that you care to it immediately. And then if you're up for it, you can do something afterwards if there's no actual trauma that happened from it. If it's just like a quick cut, okay, I cleaned it up, I put a Band-Aid on. You could even, if someone's a masochist, spray some alcohol on it. I know someone that I used to play, actually I played with them a couple times, but not during my session. I was doing a knife play, or the person I was mentored by on knife play was playing with someone I knew, and he was doing artistic cutting. And then afterwards, because she was such a massive or masochist type, she wanted alcohol sprayed on her back afterwards for that intense pain. So that's also fun, but it also sterilizes. It was a good way to do that. And remember, after all of these play sessions, do your aftercare, do your regular, do your safety aftercare for what you're particularly doing, but also make sure that you're doing actual aftercare, not actual, but emotional aftercare, cuddles, making sure people are okay, soothe the wounds, do all that stuff, and make sure people come out of it in the right headspace, right? If flogger draws blood suddenly, retire it. It could have tears or breaks in the leather that are sharp. That's fair as well. That was from Chihaya. In conclusion, we're going to have a QA in a second. In conclusion, the edge play can be an intense and exciting aspect of BDSM, but should only be explored with a high level of trust, communication, and consent between partners. Safety measures should always be taken in order to prevent unintentional harm. Hurt's going to happen. Accidents are going to happen. It has to be unintentional, okay? And it's important to understand the psychological and emotional impact that fear play and edge play can have on both the dominant and submissive partners. As with any type of kink play, it's important to prioritize the people involved. There are people on the other side of these things, online and offline. So make sure to remember that there are people here, okay? We're all people and we all share in that. Part of the reason I started teaching in the first place is because I saw too many people being disregarded or their safety being disregarded and didn't know that they could say no at any time and that they should be managing and being okay with what's going on and that they can stop at any time. So exploring edge play should be consensual and positive experience for both partners, and focus on always the focus can be on pushing boundaries in a safe and enjoyable way. By understanding the techniques and safety measures involved in fear play, this is going to be exhilarating and fulfilling. Okay, this is a very fun way to do it, but very, very dangerous. It's some really good bonding through this, but again, you're pushing boundaries. This is not SSC. This is not safe, sane, consensual. It is rack or higher. This is risk aware. And I agree with Tess. A risk aware class could be really good for this group. So make sure that you're aware of the risks that are involved, which is my point here. We're going to be doing more diving on some of these fear play elements, edge play elements. So yeah, if you have an edge play that you want to be explored, let me know before the next class, and I can possibly include it in the overview and possibly even do a bigger class on it. But yeah, this is just the first 5. There are 5 more on this list. So we will go over those either next week or the week after. We might take a break from edge play and do a class in between. Okay, does anyone have any questions? Violet, I know you had one, so I'm going to go up here. Let's see. A quote from Violet: "I like doing breath play with my mistress, but I had some about that when I was little. I had almost got suffocated by another kid that was bullying me. So now my instincts overcome you, and sometimes even just for 10 seconds. Do you have any advice on how to overcome a fear?" So if there's a trauma around something, you go slow and you only do it with someone that you trust. I also recommend just having it as a hard limit for now until you think that you're at a place that can help you get past this fear. Because I'll be 100% honest, therapy is there for a reason. I'm not saying you need it, but I needed it. And there's a lot of fear that went off the wayside because I started understanding it. So I understood what was causing several traumas for me. And so going in and basically using, it's funny, it's called CBT, it's cognitive behavioral therapy, not cock ball torture, to go into your subconscious and start cleaning house, opening boxes. So something to look into is CBT, but a little bit of a tangent here. What I'll do is I'll imagine myself walking into the basement, and I'll look around and I'll see boxes. The boxes hold your fears, and what's inside the boxes is not normally what you're afraid of. You're afraid of what could be inside the boxes. So those fears and anxieties are cobwebs around those boxes. So what you do is you go down, turn on the light, brush off the boxes, open one up at a time, compartmentalization, and that allows you to process. I'm not saying to destroy it right away. Bring it out, let it flow, talk yourself through it, and then dispose of it. Crush it, throw it out the window. Going through stuff like that with your therapist can help you get past some of these fears. That's what's worked for me. But if you're going to go the non-therapy route, I recommend just starting really slow and only doing it in small little doses, as you mentioned. Because if you're trying to get over trauma or fear, that's the best way to go about it as a therapist. Dominants or people in the scene are not a replacement for therapy. Not saying that's what you asked, but I'm just mentioning it. We help sort of expose, but you're going to need help getting rid of it and disposing. Chihaya, you were typing? Yeah, no worries. Okay. Oh, typing in chat now. Okay, so let's go over some of the comments. Some local colleges offer CPR classes. Absolutely. Tess said you don't want any clothing that catches fire or worse, melt on someone. I mentioned that, but that's also something that should be repeated. Lots of stuff from Tess regarding sharps and stuff. Sanitize all your products. There is a nerve and circulation thing that's in the event chat. I'll put that in the description of the video as well. Chihaya is still typing. Does anyone have any further questions or comments before we end the session?
So there are actually some comments in BDSM 101's text.
Thank you. Let's see. Okay.
Sadly, the user relevant's not here anymore.
Okay, so they may see this in the chat. So, well, first off, I want to say I love the informational professionalism in explaining these topics. Thank you. If one to engage in fire play, what fuel would you use that's safe on the skin? Isopropyl alcohol, 70% is what's recommended. Unfortunately, you have to leave, but the knowledge is great. Plan on coming back to more of these classes. Nice work. Thank you for the feedback. I greatly appreciate that. Okay. Thank you for pointing that out. I really appreciate that. I forget that we have these chat channels still. Yep, no worries. And also, if you want to be involved in the VR aspect, you don't need VR to actually do it. You can just use desktop, like I did when I was chasing Mira around, trying to bonk them on the head. Does anyone have any questions? Hey, we almost got an hour in. Actually, we did get an hour in. That was an hour class. Yay. Okay.